Professor P.K. Dalal. And we have eminent guests on the panel for this virtual symposium. Dr. Gautam Saha, Vice President IPS, Dr. TSSS Rao, Honorary General Secretary of IPS. And then we have the symposium discussants, Dr. Amrit Pattajoshi, Dr. P. Sri Lakshmi, Dr. Karsi Chavda, and with our chief moderator, Dr. Abhinash D'Souza. The directors of the School of IGNOU, the units, the directors of the units, the divisions, the cells in the IGNOU, and all the participants who have shown a lot of interest in joining this virtual symposium. So I, with my colleague, Professor Nayantara Padi, welcome you all on this virtual symposium on happiness at work today. And we have received an overwhelming response. We have almost 2,000 registrations till we closed yesterday. So this shows that everybody is in need of happiness at work. So this is an interesting topic, and it's quite pertinent in particularly in present crisis time, where we are facing a lot of changing situations and changing scenario in our work culture, the way we are working, the way we are performing, and the way the productivity is being affected. So that is why we thought they have a discussion on this particular topic, happiness at work. And we have a lot of eminent experts who are practicing psychiatrists, and they will be talking about the management perspective as well. So this is just an amalgamation of management and psychology. So that is why we thought of this particular topic in this session. And I welcome all. I'll just would like to make a note on this occasion that our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Nageshwar Rao, would be joining us late, probably by 1 p.m., as he is in a meeting by HRD Ministry on NEP. And I'm really grateful to our Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor R.P. Das, sir, who has taken his time out from that meeting itself to come and present his inaugural address. So I'll just not waste most of the time of yours, and I'll just invite Professor R.P. Das, sir, who is an eminent scholar and a management expert, and has almost a 30 years of teaching experience. On an administrative front, he has been, before joining to IGNOU, he has been the Vice Chancellor of Balrampur University as well. So he has a vast experience of the management perspectives in various fields. And we would like to hear you, sir, and he would be presenting the inaugural address. Sir.
Thank you very much, Nitiji, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here in this inauguration of this workshop. In fact, I was also attending the inaugural function of new education policy, but as I have been directed to be here, so I feel honored to be here, because the topic which is to be discussed, deliberated by so many eminent experts from different walk of life, especially the psychologists and practitioners. It is, as a student of management, I believe that I should also, if possible, I may totally attend the program. But whenever I was told by Nayantara that, this is work, this happiness at work, I was keen to attend the program, and fortunately I am here. I could see the eminent speakers who were there and the panelists who were there to speak and discuss on this issue. So I do not know much about it, but as a layman, I believe that I should present my views on this discussion. In fact, the theme is happiness at work. Why not happiness not at home, not happiness in life? Because happiness is a big thing, and unhappiness is cause of all problems in the life, in the society, in every walk of life, in everywhere. If you are not happy, then problem starts. If the people are not happy, then social problem starts. If the countries are not happy, war starts. Likewise, happiness is required in every walk of life, in every phase of life, in every moment of our living. So particularly whenever you are focused to happiness at work, it's very interesting. Particularly whenever we are living in a very tough time like COVID-19. During COVID-19, we have seen what is happening, because already the workplace is stopped. Workplace, the management is doing certain things for which people are unhappy. The workers are unhappy. The managers are unhappy. Particularly if we look at service sector, even manufacturing sector, because of non-payment of wages, because of retrenchment, because of deduction in the salary compensation of the employees, people are very unhappy. And whenever we look at it, unhappiness, because happiness is essential. Happiness is essential for every individual as an individual. And whenever that individual come to the place of work, we call him an employee or a worker or officer. But I look at happiness at work in two perspectives. It has many perspectives, but at two perspectives. One is happiness as an individual and happiness as an employee. As we are talking about happiness as an individual, we are talking about going to discuss about happiness at work. Let us start from happiness as an individual. When an individual will be happy? He will be happy at home. As in an individual, he is supposed to be happy at home. But the question is how he can be happy at home if his organization is not making him happy. Because his bread and butter depends upon the organization. Organization's compensation, organization's policy, organization's treatment, organization's financial benefit, organization's non-financial benefit. So if it is not there, he cannot be happy at home. We can say that, छोड़ो यार क्या करना है, मस्त रहो. लेकिन if you are an employee working in an organization, मस्त तो रह नहीं सकते हो, because your bread and butter is depend upon the compensation, benefits, financial, non-financial incentives you are getting from the organization. I look at I look at organization perspective. If we look at it, it is perhaps more the responsibility. It is more of the responsibility of the organization to make its employees happy than the individual to be happy. Why I say so? Because once an individual joins the organization, he becomes the member of the organization, as a family member of the organization. Without he has to be indispensable for the organization. The responsibility to make him happy or make her happy has to be the sole responsibility of the organization. Why I say so? Because I have seen in my life of 3 decades of working as a lecturer, as a reader, as a professor, as a vice chancellor, I have seen that, if the person is not happy in the place of work, then we as an individual, we say he has a grievance. If he has a grievance, then it is the responsibility of the organization to see it, whether it is personal related to his personal life or professional life. The organization has to see to it, or the supervisor has to speak about it. Supervisor has to make all efforts to know about it, why the person is not happy. Why? Because an unhappy individual cannot give his best 100% to the organization. If an individual is unhappy, there are many negative outcomes which are detrimental to the effectiveness of an organization. If an individual is unhappy, his productivity will decline. His absenteeism will go off. He may cause accident. He may have conflict. he may not his innovation, his creativity will decline, and he will have more grievances, and his performance will decline, and he will be dissatisfied. His commitment to the organization will decline. His commitment, his engagement to the organization will decline. If we look at all these aspects, his productivity, his commitment, his engagement, his absenteeism, are the outcome of his unhappiness. If these are the outcome of his unhappiness, so now I feel as an individual, as an administrator, I believe that we cannot afford to make an individual unhappy, as an employee unhappy in the place of work, because ultimately, if all these things are the outcome of the happiness or unhappiness of an individual, so it is the responsibility of the organization to ensure that how happiness can be created, how an individuals can be happy in the place of work. I remember that long back, almost 30 years back, I had read one theory of motivation, Horsberg's two-factor theory of motivation. Whenever Horsberg had told it, whenever we were studying it as an individual 40 years back, it was difficult to correlate it. He was saying the hygiene factor, maintenance factor, and motivator. He was talking about the hygiene factor should be the maintenance factor, that we should have healthy organizational climate, we should have good organizational policy, we should have safe work environment. If all these things are good organizational policy, if all these things are there, then individual can be happy. If individual is happy, then motivators will start. The intrinsic factor will start. He will feel recognized. He will feel motivated. He will feel engaged. He will be satisfied. But the question is, it will be possible. It will be possible if you, as the managers of the organization or the leaders of the organization, you are concerned about the hygiene factor, the maintenance factor. Now the issue before us is, since we are discussing such an important topic in such a critical time, we say that people should work from home, and now we say that people can work from home because some software companies are suggesting that, even this telco has suggested that people can work, as is making out a policy that people can work up to 2025 from their home, and many manufacturing sectors have started working with their people. Whether it is manufacturing sector or service sector, whenever people have started coming to work, what is their concern? How they can be satisfied? How they can be motivated? If we have safety and security in the place of work, we do not talk about deduction. We do not talk about, that we will not compensate you. The moment we try to hamper. The moment we try to hamper the interest and expectation of an individual, because we talk about emotional engagement of employee, an organization's success depends upon 100% commitment of an employee, 100% engagement of an employee, emotional involvement of an employee. Then only he can give his best to the organization. He can be 100% present in the organization physically and emotionally. If he's 100% present physically and emotionally in the organization, then only his productivity will be highest. He can be innovative. He can be creative. He will not talk about quarrel. He will not talk about conflict. He will talk about collaboration, cooperation. He'll work with team spirit. But it is the responsibility of the management. We should not speak. We should not say for the sake of saying that you should be happy, but we should look at it, how an individual can be happy in the place of work. We should examine it. Whether it is personal reason for which an individual is unhappy, or it is because of organizational reason for which an individual is unhappy. In management, we talk about grievance, because grievance is sometimes imaginary. Grievance can be real, but the best management always look at it. whether it is real or imaginary, it should be resolved at the shortest time possible. If we say we don't care because we pay money, he has to be satisfied, he has to happy, we are living in a fool's paradise. We are talking about human being. We are not talking about machine. We cannot say that we have purchased means you have to produce. It is wrong. He's a human being. He has his expectations. He has his reactions. If he's happy, he can give his best. If he's unhappy, he can give you negative. He can come and silently sit in the place of work. So we should evolve a mechanism, because we should evolve mechanism to examine whether our people in the place of work are happy or not unhappy. If unhappy, we should evolve mechanism. We should identify why the individual is happy. That is when we talk about organizational behavior. We want to understand the people, whether individual is happy or unhappy, individual is going to give its best or not, depends upon the happiness or unhappiness of an individual. I am so happy that the School of Management, under this leadership of these two of our professors, are organizing very good programs. I have been watching from the beginning that they have selected very fantastic topics which are of interest to the people working in different organizations and our students who are enrolled in our different management programs. I'm happy that the discussion for panelists which have been selected for today's discussions are very eminent in their respective field, and I hope their deliberation is going to be very enlightening, very useful for all of us. And depending upon availability of my time, I'm going to watch what is the discussion. If possible, I will also contribute if I'm available. Thank you, Niti, for giving me this opportunity to share my views on the topic which you have selected for today's discussion. Thank you. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir. It has indeed been an insightful experience hearing you. And you have related the commitment, the employee engagement, the motivation, all the aspects of organizational behavior to relate it to happiness. This was really a good session. Thank you so much, sir. Our director, Professor Ravi Shankar, also has joined, and he has been a motivating factor for us to start this virtual symposium. Welcome, sir. Now we have an eminent scholar, the psychiatrist, the expert in the field of mental disorders, and he has been working for the past 2 decades as a specialist, and he has a brilliant academic record. He is Dr. Gautam Saha, and he was the secretary of IPS and an international member of the American Psychiatric Association. And he has a number of research articles to his credit. I welcome you, sir, to present he's the guest of honor in this session. And I welcome you, sir, to present your views on happiness at work. Sir.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is really great to be here today to speak in front of this august body. I really, at the outset, I must thank to the IGNOU University and the members for organizing such an excellent program along with Indian Psychiatric Society. Today's program, a topic of discussion is really very important for everybody of us, that happiness at a workplace or at work. You know that if you describe happiness, it is not a single word. Happiness cannot be described by a single definition. Your happiness is definitely depends on so many factors. It is a multifactorial thing. Work is definitely one of the key important cause of your happiness. But my dear friends, I always want to tell you that whenever happiness comes in your mind, don't give your steering to any other. Keep it with you only. Because it definitely depends so many things. If you really keep your steering in your hand, the chances of your happiness is much more. But definitely at the workplace, there are lots of things related to work and happiness. In fact, if you are happy, you work much better way. And if your workplace is happy, if you are happy with your work, with your working life, definitely it will brings your in your mind happiness. There are lots of reasons why happiness at the work is important. I am telling in a nutshell because I know that after me, Dr. Keshri Chabre, Dr. Amrit Pattajashi, Dr. P. Sri Lakshmi, all the three eminent speakers are waiting to speak about this. I am not going in detail, but I am telling you what are the reasons why happiness work is important. If you see, happiness makes you more productive. If you are happy, already our respected Vice Chancellor mentioned that if you are more happy, then you will more concentrate on your work and the production will be increased. So your happiness is equally important for the organization. Happiness, number two, is happiness provides the satisfaction at workplace. Your happiness is infectious. If you are happy, you can make your colleagues also happy. You can work very good, and that is also important. As well as important is number three, happiness encourages the creativity. If you are happy, what are the sector you are working, you can develop something new. You can suggest something new by which organization can be improved. Number five, the people are a good and fast learners. All the happy people are very good and fast learners. Their brain works much better way. They can catch the thing very fast. And happiness always keeps a tension at bay. Because you know that if you are not under stress, you don't have your happiness. So you have to work on it. How you will be stress free and make yourself happy. So, want to become a leader who gets the thing done, starts using how you become a happy, right? But the thing is that there is also evidence-based studies to measure the happiness. You know, the World Happiness Report published annually to coincide the United Nations with the National Day of Happiness. They measure how, in which country, how many persons, what is the happiness quotient. There are different scale because if you are happy, then the productivity of this country, of the if think of organizational level is increased. So the question is how to make happy to the people in the working place. What is most important dependable factors? Number one, definitely the flexible work schedule. So whenever organizer, any topmost people of the organization, they make the work schedule, they should take care of the how your employees are taking it. Because flexible work schedule will always make the people happy, as well as strong involvement of the work. If you are very much strongly involved in what we are doing, definitely you become happy because job satisfaction is a very important factor. And also need for appreciation. Whatever you do, or if organization appreciate that, then definitely you become very much happy. And also organization should give a freedom to the employers. Definitely with the restriction and thinking of the positive side. But freedom is very important for the employer to become happy. Having and also pleasant work atmosphere is very important. Whenever you acting, I just mentioned in a school. I know, one article I read that in a boarding school for the teachers they made a swimming pool for the entertainment purpose. These also help them become stress-free and ultimately become happy, which definitely increase their productivity. And there are lots of things. Taking care of the safety and security of the employee is also important. And so I am not going to discuss much more. I know that happiness at the workplace is equally important. And for the happiness, work is important. You have to love your work as well as you have to make yourself as a stress free. So you should take care of your stress. You should take the measures how you become happy. And lastly, I mention, don't give your steering for happiness to any other people, any other organization. Try to develop the steps how you become happy. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. It has indeed been a pleasure to listen to you. Dr. Saha is also the Vice President of Indian Psychiatric Society. So that is also an interesting hat he has adorned. The other part I would like to stress here is what Dr. Saha said, that don't give the baton of your happiness to others. And I would like to quote a German philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, and that's a very famous quote, that it is very difficult to find happiness within oneself, but it is impossible to find happiness outside. So with this note, the next speaker of this session is an eminent academician in the field of psychiatrist. He is Professor P.K. Dalal. He is the president of Indian Psychiatric Society, and he is presently working as professor in King George Medical University, Lucknow. And he is an eminent scholar and has number of publications to his credit, and he is associated with number of societies working on such issues. I present to you Professor Dalal. Sir, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Professor Neeti and Professor Nayantara. And I welcome all of you. And at the very outset, it is a very, I would say, important program. And all the dignitaries, the Pro Vice Chancellor and the designated people on IGNOU, the eminent scholars, and whoever is listening. I would say it's a very important topic, and we all know that majority of our lifespan we devote in our workplace. Almost everybody is working nowadays around 40 years of one's career. Actively we are devoting 40 years. I am reaching 65, and I would say almost for 40 years I am associated with King George Medical University at Lucknow. Initial 5 years, 4 years around so as a resident, and then as a faculty, and I am heading this department of around 150 people for last 10 years or even more than that. So now coming to the topic, actually the first thing is, what is happiness? What do we mean by happiness? So happiness is basically a broad term that describes the experience of positive emotions. And what are they? It could be joy, contentment, and satisfaction. What are the concepts and means of happiness? We all know about the great Greek philosopher Aristotle, who said that happiness consists of at least two aspects. First is hedonia, which means pleasure, and the second one is eudaimonia, that is a life well lived. So there are different concepts and means of happiness, as has been told by Gautam Saha, and which has been debated in all cultures and ages. like material wealth and affluence, as has been talked about, fulfillment of one's desire, human relationship, development of one's potentiality and individuality, one's own psychological state, faith in religion and spirituality are some of the variables. There is a recent concept of happiness index about which Dr. Gautam Saha has said, and this levels of people could be used to inform and guide individual to form public policies. This happiness index is now being used, that whatever the policy which a government is going to employ, whether it is going to be of public utility and giving rise public to happiness or not. I mean, in 2020, as happiness index, the happiest country is Finland. India comes very, very low. The happiest state in India is Sikkim, and the happiest district in India is Chandigarh. 215, Lucknow used to be number 2 after Chandigarh. I do not know what is the current status. So basically, as has been said, that in Corona days, it is again a very, very important happiness at workplace, right? Now, if we talk about some biological aspects of happiness, we all know that any construct, it depends upon biopsychosocial model. So there are certain psychological factors like personality factors. There could be social factors like as has been I would say told about very explicitly by Pro Vice Chancellor Saab about. So there are social factors, there are family, there are I would say psychological factors, that is the personality, and there are biological factors as well. Now, biological factors, as a neuroscientist, we can say that it has got brain. There is a localizing area, and in that there are the other neurotransmitters which work in them are the dopamine and endorphins, especially the anandamide. So when we do exercise, yoga, meditation, or any other positive things, these endorphins are released and they give rise to happiness. So basically, this happiness can improve the endocrine as well as the immune system. Nowadays, we are talking about to increase our immunity by doing this thing, that thing. So basically, if we are happy, and we all know that laughter is the best medicine. So if we are happy, if we laugh, then our immunity will improve of its own, and this will definitely help in fighting against all the viral kind of infections, including COVID. So there are certain positive aspects which I will be touching upon, is that how to improve this happiness. As far as the it is important to have to take a lot of sunshine which is available in abundance in our country, to have a good sleep, which we say about 6 to 8 hours, to have a balanced diet, to do exercise, yoga, meditation, to get connected with friends and family members, as well as to be self-confident and have faith in yourself, have mindfulness and resilience. So these all things are very, very important, and have a purpose for life. That is also very, very important. That is your purpose is only to get a fat salary at the end of the month and give the bills of everything, of house and of children's education and all these things, or is it beyond that? So all these things are very, very important. I can give you my example is that after completing my MD examination in the year 1984, for about a year I worked in as senior research officer in Bhopal in the gas tragedy, and there I appeared for class 1 psychiatrist job in Union Public Service Commission, where I was selected, and I got the appointment letter while I was posted in Bhopal, and the letter came to my father and he redirected it to me, and I refused to join that post because I was aiming at some teaching post in my discipline. And my father was taken aback that at such a young age you are getting such a good job and you are refusing it. So in a year's time, I got my lecturer post in KGMC in this institute where I'm continuing for last 35 years. And then, as our pro vice chancellor has said, getting after different promotions, I became a professor in the year 1999, and then heading the department for last 10 years. And then, after attaining a certain height, then one has to increase his benchmark also. So I said, what can I do next? Because I did not aspire to go further to be a vice chancellor or a principal or a dean of this institute. So I thought, why not to go for our body in which I am a active member from the very beginning. So I fought for the election as well as organized our annual national conference. So I somehow I would say won that. I worked hard for that. I won that. So what I wanted to say is that now I am rather enjoying this position and I am happy about it. And in this we are doing, I mean, all the members, we are doing a very good constructive work in this COVID time as well. So basically, what has been said is that once you have achieved something, you will have to go a little bit up and set your another benchmark for that. So then, if you achieve that, that will be again give you some amount of happiness, and you can distribute that happiness by doing constructive work for the society, for the organization, whatever you are working for. So all these things are very, very important, and I would say that you shouldn't become stagnant at one position. That look well, you have become professor, and by seniority automatically you will become head, and then a day you will retire. So that should not be one's aim, and rather once you have achieved that, you should aim to have another benchmark for it. So I am quite happy that this particular topic is being taken up, and this is very, very important in this COVID area also, and I would say for all the time, because it is not only in COVID area, maybe pre-COVID area, maybe post-COVID area, as has been said, that if you are happy, then only your family will be happy, your workplace, you will be distributing more happiness, you will be more productive, and more you will be there with a more positive energy, and that will be seen in your work, in your organization, in your home, and everywhere. So with that, I again welcome all of you, and I think it will be a very stimulating discussion, and something very concrete will come out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for food for thought, that how we can increase our happiness. We have been listening and we have been reading a lot about happiness in different forms, but you have presented the concept of happiness in a very crisp form. Thank you so much. Now coming to our next guest. Our next guest is Dr. T.S.S. Rao, and he is a very renowned psychiatrist in our country. And basically, he is very popular with his rational and better quality mental health care in modern day practice of psychiatry in India. He's our guest speaker. Dr. Rao has provided
Hello.
extraordinary and exemplary contribution in establishing certain standards and ideals in the intellectual and scientific tradition of India. He is currently serving as Professor of Psychiatry at JSS Medical College, JSS University, Mysore, and he is also a consultant at Sumana Vinayak Nursing Home, Mandya. I welcome you, sir, and we are waiting to listen to your thoughts. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Personally, and as Secretary, Indian Psychiatric Society, and second from Mysore, one of the most beautiful cities in India, JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research, I bring the greetings, and I am confident the way it is going, it will be one of the very, very successful program. What I wanted to speak, a lot of people have already brought to the focus. So let me just change track a little bit and try to look into this particular area before the other experts take over. Why this discussion about happiness? I still remember in 1992, I was doing my postgraduate diploma in hospital administration at CMC Vellore. The thesis I carried was job satisfaction among doctors in a teaching institution. There we discussed quite a bit which are tangible and which are intangible, and what actually ultimately determines somebody does well or not. One key component is actually the happiness or the satisfaction. One important question is actually, of course, who doesn't like happiness? But if you ask anybody, each one has their own take on this particular matter. I still remember one of the school teacher giving an assignment to high school students, what you want to achieve, what you want to consider something as successful later part of the life. Among the students, many people wrote about position, money, power, so many things, including the type of partner he wants to have and all of that. One student having written word, I want to be happy. Teacher feels this fellow has not understood the assignment what I had given. She calls him and asks, you misunderstood my assignment. Then the boy says, Miss, you have misunderstood life. That speaks everything. In fact, ultimately we do so many things, and one important component which determines us is actually whether we are actually happy. Unfortunately, this particular word, happiness, carries a bit of irony in the sense that we all want happy. We are trying to chase happiness, but unfortunately, we are moving far, far away from this being happy. And this is what actually the Russ Harris speaks about, something called as happiness trap. We are all trying to fight and go after something, and whether we actually really we are going to get it or not. See, if you try to look at what is actually happening in the world over, so much of depression, so much of misery, so much of problems, and this uncertain times like COVID-19 has been brought out by our president, Dr. That there is significant, any library you go, the self-help group, in fact, related to that, the number of books that are available. In my house, I carry a library of around 13,000 books, and I was just trying to look at those titles which carry the word happiness. I could pull out somewhere around 500 plus books which are there on the word happiness. So ultimately, I was wondering what really one would be talking on this particular matter, because each one actually looks at it from a particularly very, very different area. We all now speak about the mental health issues and all of that. In fact, psychiatrists are needed, psychologists are needed, counselors are needed. In fact, every school, every organization, in fact, people are talking that they are needed. That only shows that there is actually much more problem than what we actually initially thought. You go to any TV program or any social program and all of that. In fact, people literally speaking on this particular area, giving different advices for different groups. We all actually were well aware of. what as a psychiatrist would like you to look into is actually, we need to differentiate few things when we say word happiness. There are two meanings are there. One, in fact, very easy meaning I can think of is actually the happiness is equal to pleasure. In fact, if pleasure is actually happiness, a drug addict should have been one of the happiest person on the earth. It is not. In fact, people believe that if I have the money, if I have the position, if I have the power, if I have this one, that I will be happy. Unfortunately, each of these type of things actually will create much more problem than actually it solves. Yesterday, I was watching this serial Krishna and DD National. There, the situation of the Parijata flower, and this was given to Rukmini, one flower, but the other lady, in fact, she has been blessed with eternal life and beauty all through but she feels jealous because this particular one flower was given to the other lady. Ultimately, she demands that the whole tree has to be brought. What I am trying to tell, when we are trying to search out happiness outside, we are actually searching for the pleasure, and this is actually something external, something fleeting. It comes and goes, and it never satisfies anybody. One may be happy with one house, but you might have seen that another house I need to build. If I am happy with some particular salary, next day, next month, another year later, I am not happy with that particular thing. I marry somebody I loved so much, but few days later, I feel I should have married somebody else. Well, this is a never-ending process. What it means is, we are all actually in this rat race of getting something more, and we believe by that we will be happy. Unfortunately, it is not so. In fact, what actually has been told is that happiness means it is actually the way we live our life, satisfied, contented, and many of these type of terminologies actually people have used earlier. And ultimately, to get that particular, what one has to do. In fact, there was some answer given by Dr. Dalal Sahab itself that so many ways actually one can try to get it. That maybe the mindfulness to spiritual to, in fact, the love relationship and all these type of things actually really matter. One of the first question what Dr. Das mentioned, that happiness at work means why not happiness at home? I still remember one of the great theatre artists, Hiranaya from Karnataka, in one of the programs was talking. We create hell both in office, at home, because we don't know what actually to do at what place. All the problems are there at home, we take it to the office and we create problems there in the office. The office becomes in fact in hell because he can't do anything at home and he takes the problem there. And in the evening, we try to bring the whole office to the house and we create again such a difficult problem at home. What it means is, we need to know what are our capacities. We need to know our limitations. We need to know what actually gives me pleasure. It is not the money. It is not this. It is not that. In fact, if we are tangible things, if we are trying to looking at it, in fact, it is not going to be. In fact, I practice in a place where little more rural side. People believe that if I have a son, my problems are going to get solved. If I can get a good crop, my problem will get solved. But these are all the type of things actually we try to go after. And I don't think actually any one of these type of things is going to actually take care of. And when we say this happiness, there are a few myths and misconceptions related to that. One is happiness is a natural state. Absolutely true. In fact, it is. But when we actually put a little bit extra pressure on that and we want to achieve it something in a different fashion or from our own standard of success, that's where actually we land up in problem. Negative thoughts and all you should get out of. Be positive. Then only we are happy. Unfortunately, in fact, one of the points mentioned was that the pleasure or the happiness is related to being the laughter and things like that. Absolutely no doubt on that particular point. But weeping can be actually as much happiness giving as anything else. In fact, when I talk to men and women, lot of men suffer from lot of problems, not because anything, but they don't know how to express emotions. They load it, they don't talk about it, and they feel that they can handle it on their own actually without sharing anything. And that's where actually they land up in problem. In fact, actually emotion, people believe that if you have control on emotions, everything will get solved. But we have to look at it another way. We should have that capacity to let go certain things which can make us happy, and we can do a wonderful job actually related to that. And if we try to look at many people, we are all we studied something, we take up a job something. We do something, want to do something, but we take up something else mainly because either family wanted or somebody else insisted on that. And we believe that, in fact, there is one of the colleague's daughter. She wanted to take up some particular course. Her father was telling, I heard that another 5 years later, there may not be demand for this particular job. See, we get carried away by such of some very silly and very this thing. If somebody is happy with that, we're not going to be a problem. I very well remember this Confucius, what he was telling. You really love a job, means you don't have to work at all like that any one day. That means your love, your passion, your interest, your motivation, these are the things which actually keep you happy. And one would be striving for this particular thing rather than, in fact, for the earning, for the livelihood, for eating, and very often these type of things actually we are trying to look at. Most likely we are going to land up with significant problem. Coming to the work area, in fact, points have been brought in discussion already. The whole issue here is actually we believe that if I have a position and power, I can run the show. In fact, what J.R.D. Tata mentions, you want to do something for a short while, you can do yourself. You want to run for a long distance marathon, in fact, you have to go along with people. In fact, any problem, any issue, there are different perspectives. You have your perspective, your wife has a different perspective, your employee has a different perspective, your student has a different perspective. If you only give a little bit of a thought to what actually precisely happening, you would be much more happy, and one would be doing a wonderful job related to this. So we all should be really happy because this particular area has been brought into focus. And there was one, I still remember a lady coming and telling that, sir, I have money, I have a very good husband, 2 children who are doing extremely well. I still feel I am very unhappy. This is one of the very, very common story, most probably with anybody who is clinically dealing with people. Even maybe colleagues may be telling, when everything else is there, why actually she is suffering so much? In fact, she should be happy. This is, for that we have to understand, when you are talking about happiness, there is something biology, there is something psychology, and there is something called sociology. Of course, psychologists, people have something happened in our developmental process, whether they gave me enough sufficient strength to manage the things. In fact, we call it as hardiness. In fact, one can do extremely well. But we have seen many people, very disciplined way the children are brought out, but they turn out to be very, very hopeless and problematic. So it doesn't depend upon how discipline you try to inculcate, but it also depends upon the freedom and the flexibility what actually they try. In fact, this would now call as what we call as emotional intelligence. That means social skills, how actually we can manage people. They are actually extremely important. Biologically speaking, there are 4 important things. In fact, very briefly, it was mentioned by Dr. Dalal Sahab also. But what I can tell you is, there is a particular molecule called as dopamine. This is actually which makes us do certain things. Whatever you want to do with passion. You can trigger the dopamine. One can take alcohol, one can take drugs, one can do a beautiful, nice job. All of these things will raise the dopamine. There are something we have to share and do well with others. This is where actually the serotonin comes. In fact, I am imparting education. I am trying to see that my student is doing extremely well, he will take it up. And I am trying to do something else because of which my maid in the house, she feels happy, she will do another job. It is actually the serotonin actually which really matters. That Anandamai to so many things. In fact, we call endorphins. We do certain things. In fact, there are a lot of activities which can increase all these things. You do a simple exercise. In fact, what you eat, the exercise what you do, the amount of time what you sleep, and each of these activities, they are extremely important. But not sleeping well, not eating proper food, not doing physical activity, each of these type of things actually creates a lot of difficulty. That means, in fact, the issues involved. And the last one, the oxytocin. See, the oxytocin is one we talk about bonding, relationship, and a lot of other such things. One of the very common story in the management schools people talk about is actually a jar is there and you fill up golf balls and then small stones and then mud and then chocolate juice. If you fill up in the beginning itself the mud, you are not likely to do well actually. Spare enough time for managing those golf. What is this golf about? is about your life in general to, in fact, your friends, your colleagues, your wife, your children. And in fact, these are all extremely important components. Somebody who is happy at home will be happy at work also. Somebody is happy at work, most likely he will be happy at home also. So there is a strong interconnection. I am really happy. One can go on this particular point any length of time, but really happy that I have been invited for this particular program. Really enjoyed so far. And I'm more than confident that subsequent discussion by those experts is really something worthwhile to emulate, maybe to provide it to the others in this particular angle. Thank you very much. Congratulations at the outside to IGNOU, and IPS is extremely happy to be associated with this particular program. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We just heard to Dr. T.S.S. Rao, Honorary General Secretary of Indian Psychiatric Society. Thank you so much, sir, for relating the biological, social, and psychological aspects and connecting happiness with work. We all know that in this uncertain and competitive business environment and knowledge intensive work environment, all the business organizations, they are really striving, and they are facing a lot of challenges maintaining the happiness at work. So we need to understand the organizational parameters as well, and that how happiness can be created at work. Though we all know, as you said, it is inherent. So we can create a kind of an environment where people feel happy to work. So with this note, we'll just start with the symposium discussion, and in between, if our Honorable Vice Chancellor joins us soon, because he said that he would be joining by 1:10, so we can just start with the discussion, and then we can continue with his address as well. And in the symposium discussion, we have eminent psychiatrists and academicians, and starting with, I just would like to welcome Dr. Karsi Chavda, who is an accomplished psychiatrist and is related to the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of mental and emotional health problems. He is a founder member of Prafullita. That is again a Hindi word for happiness, and it is one of the biggest NGOs in Mumbai which is dealing with mental health. Dr. Karsi Chavda, he's on the panel. And then we have Dr. Amrit Pattojoshi, and he has been instrumental in motivating and supporting and coordinating with IGNOU in materializing this symposium. And Dr. Amrit Pattojoshi is a professor and chief consultant neuropsychiatrist at High Tech Medical Center and High Tech Medical College, and he is in the Healing Touch Clinic also. He's associated with Healing Touch Clinic also. He is the director council member of IPS. He is the editor of Odisha Journal of Psychiatry, and he is the chief coordinator of UNICEF, WHO, and IPS. And he initiated on telemedicine, on psychosocial management during the COVID-19. And I think, sir, it is this particular movement is still on, because as we are facing a lot of challenges with COVID-19. So we present Dr. Amrit Pattojoshi as the second panelist on the symposium. Then we have Dr. Sri Lakshmi, and she is the associate professor, and she is associated with the academic part of psychology, and she is also a psychiatrist. Dr. Sri Lakshmi, welcome you. I welcome you. And then we have our chief moderator of the session, Dr. Avinash D'Souza. And he's been associated, when I was looking at his biography, I think it will take a lot of time to explain his biography. He has almost more than 300 research publications on mental issues, and he is owning a foundation called D'Souza Foundation, which is, I think, one of the largest foundations related to the mental health of children, if I'm right, sir. And he is working with the mental health and mental disorder of children. And welcome, sir. And we'll start with the session, and we'll start with Dr. Karsi's thought. And Dr. Avinash, you can start moderating the session. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here on this panel. We will start straight away with Dr. Amrit, and the first question to you, Dr. Amrit, is: how would you define a happy workplace? What do you think goes into that?
Like Avinash, thank you for the question. Like, happiness has a lot of components, like which has been discussed. But if you look at a really happy workplace, it's a productive, it's a flexible and a very resilient workplace where employees feel they have control over and they are responsible over what they are doing. It makes them feel good, where they can actually pull themselves without being pushed around too much. They feel respected, they feel valued, they get positive vibes when they can't go there. It is not just an emotional, momentary emotional state where someday some bonuses have been given or someday there is an office party. It's not like that. And overall there is a sense of enjoyment at work. They are able to handle setbacks. They're able to mix amicably with their colleagues, co-workers, maybe in an institutional setup, maybe the students, and knowing that your work matters not just to you but to your organization and to your workmates everywhere, and it is beyond that. It gives you better health, you feel fresh, you feel happy, and when you go back you feel satisfied, and you are better off when you reach home after your work. So that defines a happy workplace actually.
Right. I will now move on to Dr. Sri Lakshmi, and my question to Madam is, Madam, what can workplaces do to, say, inculcate happiness at the workplace?
Yes, the host was not allowing me to.
Yes, no problem. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So, thank you, Dr. Avinash. Please repeat your question.
Yeah. What do you think workplaces can do to inculcate happiness at work?
Yes. So it's a two-way street. Happiness is a two-way street. The workplace has to do something for the employee's happiness, and the employee also has to make his efforts to stay happy at the workplace. So for the employers to do something, I think the first and most important thing is a positive reinforcement. There are many psychologists in this panel. I've seen the questions, and I think that a pat on the back and saying a job well done at regular intervals keeps one motivated. Ki chalo aur karna hai, aur kuch karna hai. Let me, I am getting this. That rush that you get by getting a positive feedback makes you feel happier. Similarly, but every time one cannot just make you feel good and all the time give you positive comments. There will be time when you have to be criticized. So at that time, the employer possibly needs to understand that you're criticizing the work and not the person. So the criticism has to be couched in words which will lead to positive growth, rather than telling them that you're a useless fellow and you cannot work. Similarly, has to be, and if all these not working and the person continues to be distressed, they should have safe places where they can actually ventilate these issues without having to feel pressurized or taken advantage of or feeling vulnerable. So these few things will make a lot of changes. I think the others have already talked about flexibility at workplace and work-life balance and team bonding and all that. So happy workplace is where an employer makes a lot of effort, but the employee also needs to do his duty. No happiness comes without doing your duty. You cannot think that chalo, my employer has attended this seminar in IGNOU and he's going to take care of my happiness. It's not that way. Like Dr. Gautam Saha said very clearly, the steering wheel of our happiness is in our hands. So maintaining a happy atmosphere in the workplace is as much a responsibility of the employee as it is that of the employer. That's what I think.
Right. Moving on to Dr. Chawda. I would just want to ask you, sir, why is it that in today's era, more and more people are searching for happiness?
Well, I guess it is people from my generation actually believe that, you got happy if you got things. So we looked out for a nice house and we looked out for a nice car and we looked out for a little bit of appreciation. And then we realized that whatever level of, what we got, whatever level of acquisition that was got, still did not really give us the happiness that we were looking for. So now I do believe that the time has come where people are looking for self-actualization. They're looking for things that make them happy, and they're finding that it doesn't really depend on the clothes you're wearing or the brand you're using. It comes from within. If you start feeling you're a good chap from within, if you start feeling that you're doing well from within, if you start feeling that you are making a difference to the world from within, I think that is what happiness is all about. So when we are saying people are looking more and more and more for happiness, we are looking for a nebulous thing that actually is within us. Of course, there will be external factors that cause or effect on us. But by and large, you could be in the best job in the world, you could have the biggest car in the world, you could have the biggest house in the world. But if you are not happy from within, you're not really going to be happy. And in terms of one other thing, in today's perspective, given the fact that we have this horrible COVID thing that is causing so much of anguish, especially in the workplace, I am dealing with a whole bunch of people who don't really know if their job situation is going to continue the way it is, who don't know if they're going to be working tomorrow. For example, I have a pilot who works for a particular airline and his wife is an air hostess, and last 3-4 months they haven't worked. Now, if you are used to a fairly high standard of living and suddenly there is no work and you're paying off huge EMIs based on the premise that you would be able to take care of it, it is then not surprising that their so-called happiness factor diminishes. But we also have other people who are in similar situations who manage to cope and are still happy, or as happy as they can be. So to a large extent, people are looking for happiness. It comes from within. It depends on resilience. And to a large extent, it is monitored through the genetic personality type of the person.
Okay. Well, going back to you, Amrit, my question is that, there's so much of talk of happiness declining. So why do you think in today's era, happiness is becoming less and less in many populations? Even Dr. Dalal mentioned that, we are way behind in India as far as happiness goes compared to so many other countries. So why do you think it's declining?
The very pertinent question, Avinash. It depends on what we define as happiness. Actually, the whole value, the whole definition of happiness is associated with success, like owning a big car, or my child getting 97% in his 10th examination, my wife going and me going on 3 holidays a year to some exotic European location. Or maybe, the definition of happiness is not absolutely what we actually want to be. And then when we get those things, we are not happy. There's a lot of, inequality in terms of income inequality. I look at fellow colleagues in the surgery department or plastic surgeon or maybe a gastroenterologist, and I think that I earn much less. There's political polarization. What we see nowadays, this party versus this party, somewhere they're unhappy looking at what are the majority of the WhatsApp messages. Burnout within us, a lot of people, we work so hard to achieve something and we don't get those things. We burn out very fast. A very poor support system. This COVID era must have put to bear a lot of things which we thought might have been giving us happiness, which we don't have. So many of us who have had good social support have managed to thrive better than many others who thought that it was all about money, it was all about financial things. And when their parents are somewhere and the kids are caught somewhere and they have nobody to look up to, then they become much more worse. Then the social inequality which we see in our country, which is very, very high, lifestyles which are very, very demanding on us. Maybe in metropolitan cities, they are much more demanding than what people in the villages do. Moral values have gone for a toss. We have become very less spiritual. Corruption is another thing which makes us very, very unhappy. If you look at what Dr. Dalal was speaking, out of 156 countries, India stands number 144. If you talk about X, Y, Z, India doing this, India has built this, Atmanirbhar, everything, but in the happiness index, because we as kids, we as adolescents have never been taught to be happy. We've only been taught to get this many marks, get this job, get this thing. So the emotional expressions, what to understand, how to understand those emotions have never been taught to us. So we are a society which is perennially unhappy, which is perennially sad, and we're always trying to achieve things which might be there with us. So we have to look within to find those things.
Right. Moving on to Madam. Madam, question for you is that why do you think, what is the cause of happiness in people who work in organizations? Is it specific people or is it the organization itself?
You're asking me the unhappiness or the happiness?
The unhappiness in organizations. Is it the organization itself or is it maybe a few people in the organization that lead to this?
I think it is both. There can never be a single factor contributing to unhappiness in a workplace. So when it is a mixture or amalgamation of so many factors that come into play. Now, if you're supposing you're walking into your office and you think that your boss is in a foul mood and he's immediately going to lash out at you and you'll be publicly humiliated, you're going to be unhappy, even though it's not your fault and you're going to be punished for it. So unpredictability or one unhappy person, like you say, one bad apple spoils the rest. One unhappy person in the office organization is capable of making everybody else unhappy there. Like it's contagious, as happiness is. Similarly, if the workplace specific things would be there, for example, if you feel that you are working a lot more than what the other person is working, then leads to unhappiness. You especially see, I'm a government employee, so I'd like to point out that many times in a government, the work is put on the person who's working and the others sort of slip away. So that gets into a lot of frustration. Similarly, if you find that you're unfavorably looked upon, so the person your two colleagues are there, you have issues, the other person has issues, but your colleague is heard, but you're not heard. The favoritism gets to you. The gender bias gets to you. So, but let's not forget the biology. Beyond all this, if innately you're depressed, you're biologically depressed, you go to your workplace, no matter what the happiness, no matter what the workplace is doing for you, you will not find that happiness because your biology is not supporting you. This is what I think. It's a multifactorial thing.
Right. Dr. Chavda, the question for you is something on the lines of what Dr. Rao also mentioned. Do you think that professional happiness and personal happiness are interlinked? And if so, why?
Well, to a large extent, one depends on the other. So if I'm personally happy, it's very likely that I'm going to work professionally with much more gusto, with a greater concentration, look out for things because I'm just so happy within that I'd like to do stuff even at a professional level. And if you're looking at it, if I'm doing very well professionally, it would probably stand that I would feel happy personally. I'd feel satisfied. I'd feel I'm doing well. I'd feel that there is some amount of connection from within. So I would really believe that both of them to some extent are interlinked. Given that in certain situations, even people who are coming from a, shall we say, bad personal space, maybe a disruptive home environment, maybe abuse at home, they still manage to do well professionally. And then you get into this thing of, would they have been able to do better professionally if they were also happier personally? They probably would have. But this still remains a conjecture, and we never will know unless they get out of that abusive situation. Then only they will know whether or not they are doing better professionally.
Right. Amrit, there has been a lot of talk of something called happiness training. And, organizations have been doing it. I think there was a move in many organizations that, we are having a training program in happiness. So do you think people can be trained to be happy?
Well, to be very frank, there is no health without proper mental health. So that is one area where we have not been trained. But a man becomes happy as much as he wants to be. That is what we all have been. If you just cut out the biology and the psychology or anything, I can be as happy as I want to be. It requires an effort. It's not just an apple that is found in the trees. You go out and then you spend some money, take the best tree and take out the apple and eat it and you become happy. So we need to explore it and maybe find it ourselves. So for that, a balance of life is very, very important. Teaching somebody how to balance his life is very important. It's not just about control. We all try to control our lives and somewhere we become unhappy, not getting the controls over everything. Maybe balance between our conscience, the work we do, the money we get. We need love. We want to be moralistic, and in spite of that, we want to earn a lot of money. So all these things make us what we are. So if somebody asks me, how do you train somebody? Let us look at these small things in life. Let us learn to forgive and forget. Let us be kind. Let us nurture relationships. We've forgotten to nurture relationships between partners, friends, family members, co-workers. We tend to overthink a lot of things. Let us just stop thinking. Let us be more compassionate. let us cultivate optimism. Even if you look at the boss, the teacher, the only thing they know to tell that you're a no-goner, you're a gadha, you will not do anything. Even the parents speak like that to the kids. So somewhere we have to talk about optimistic things. People don't know how to develop coping strategies, like Dr. Srilakshmi was telling. If I'm told that I'm not doing my work, I become pessimistic. I think I'll be kicked out of the office. We should develop coping skills that yes, there will be negative things in our life. Even if we do everything we need to do, we might not get results. We don't teach those things to our children. We are not properly equipped with that. So somewhere those trainings are very, very important. We've forgotten to count our blessings. We are worried about COVID, but we are not worried about the fact that we are safe, we are happy, we are able to eat, we have a roof, we have hospitals that are equipped for us. We have never celebrated those things. We are not celebrating that today 2,000 people have come out alive. We're worried about 2 people dying. So somewhere we are not counting our blessings. We basically, and somewhere we are not taking care of our body, we are not taking care of our health, we are not doing proper exercise, we are not sleeping well, we are not eating well, and we are taking a lot of substance which we should not. So somewhere if you are able to balance a little of each, you might train your happy, and maybe if you are happy, people around you will be happier.
Right. Thank you. Dr. Sri Lakshmi, moving ahead, I want to ask you, what kind of employee support programs or what kind of employee programs can be done in organizations to inculcate happiness? As a mental health professional, what would you advise? What are the kinds of programs we could have?
Yes. So taking up from where Dr. Amrit left off, saying that, the mental health, there's no health without mental health. And the first step in any organization is to normalize these discussions about mental health. One should not hesitate to say that they are stressed or they're depressed or they're anxious and be looked upon strangely and say, oh, you are, I feel the same thing, but I'm not. You're not me and I'm not you. So our genetics differ, our environment differs. So we are two different people. So first, normalizing the discussion about mental health is very important. Almost all corporates, since I come from one of the corporate hubs of the country, Hyderabad, almost all corporates have a counselor or a mental health person on call. So if people are not still stigmatized and do not like to go openly, there are calls which you could make anonymously and get help. There are lots of psychological helplines that are present these days. And most importantly, it is the mentoring which is very important in an organization. You have given all kinds of support. You have said, go to this counselor, go talk on the helpline, but unless somebody is guiding you, unless your colleague or your senior is compassionate enough to recognize the signs of stress in you and say that, look, you seem to be having some issues, I will support you and let us go and get it done together. These kind of mentoring programs, I think, are very essential in every organization. So normalizing discussion about mental health is important not only in organizations, but for all of us.
Right. Well, moving on to Dr. Chawda, sir, since you had extensive experience of over 3 decades in schools, my question to you is that do you think that, if we train young children, say, post the age of 10 and above in, say, happiness in schools, do you think we'll build better adults?
Well, I certainly believe it will make a difference. Let's look at it like this. Today, by and large, excepting in some institutions, not too much of emphasis is paid on a kid's mental health. We still have the old rigorous, if you're not doing well in school, then you've got to do this, you've got to do that. There is a punishment scene and so on. Fortunately, of course, corporal punishment has become a crime, but unfortunately, we still see a fair amount of it happening in some of our schools. I guess what we need to do is turn from the perspective that marks and subjects, which are very, very important. I mean, of course, we must know about our histories and our geographies and our mathematics and our sciences, but it's equally important for us to know how to deal with bullying. It's equally important for us to know how to deal with gender inequality and hopefully not be a bigot later on. It's very important for us to know what depression is all about, what anxiety is all about, so that I can appear for my exams without getting into a panic attack. It's extremely important for me to learn how I can support another child or my peer who might be having a difference, who might be having a difference intellectually, who might be having a difference physically, because eventually all sorts make the world. We cannot live in a society where only the people who are doing well academically are given, the kind of accolades that they are. Just because you're doing well academically, that is not that does not mean that you're going to be successful later on when you leave school or college. So the important thing that we must remember over here is, of course, academics is important. Nobody in the least is saying that it's not, but it is not everything. So if we can somehow get our kids to become more caring, to become more soft, to become more cooperative with each other, to look at differences in society with affection and compassion, to learn volunteering, which is one of the biggest things today that is happening. When we see our kids volunteering for a whole bunch of things, we find that, first of all, they are affected positively. And then, of course, our motherland gets all the benefits of volunteerism. If we can get all of that happening, I think our future will be much brighter, rather than having little robotic kids who just know how to add and subtract, but otherwise are very cold and unfeeling.
Right. Amrit, we get many patients and we get many individuals who come to us and say कि मैं खुश हूँ, लेकिन वो अंदर की खुशी नहीं है. So how would you define that अंदर की खुशी, as a mental health professional? Yeah.
Nice question, Avinash.
Yeah.
Put a googly to me, actually. So basically, what is happiness actually? It is the expression of joy, no? As a positive sense of well-being, combined with maybe thinking that our life is good, meaningful and worthwhile. So somewhere they might be happy outside, but inside they might not be finding that the life is meaningful, or there is any sense of purpose in their life. Maybe the search for a meaning and purpose in their life. Many times people think that, yes, happiness in terms of what they thought they would be if they have certain things in terms of objective things. But maybe deep down, they never had if you look at Maslow's, the self-actualization policy. I want to teach psychology here, but maybe somewhere their purpose in life, what they wanted to do in life, might be absolutely opposite of what they have achieved in life. So somewhere I think the purpose, the feeling of sense of well-being, and it might be maybe contentment. They are not contented with their life in terms of what they have got. So the satisfaction index, they might be happy in terms of the external world. Maybe internally that thing, they might be searching for what would make them better off. So that is where there's a thin line between they being happy, they expressing it, and they think, and the world thinking that they are happy. Maybe the world thinks that they are happy. That is why they feel that they might be happy, but they actually are not happy inside.
Right. Well, Madam Sri Lakshmi, the important question here is, you've been working in, as you said, at a very big corporate hub city like Hyderabad. So one is, how important do you think are salaries when it comes to happiness? It's a very important question. So, so does necessarily having a good salary make you happy?
Of course, don't you want to be paid? All of us do.
Yeah.
But I think how much is enough is very important, right? So salary is one of the only aspects. Now, if I start comparing and saying I'm doing so much work, but Dr. Amrit is earning so much more than me, then I would be definitely unhappy. But if I think that he's putting in so much effort throughout the day, 10, 20, 12 hours, and I just put in 2 hours, and I'm okay with mine. So salary, but studies also tell you that there is no correlation between salary and happiness. So like you said, I work in the corporate hub, but I also work for animal welfare. So that takes me to a lot of slums. And believe me, I've seen the happiest children there. They live for day to day. They don't have too much expectations from life. They don't know where the next meal is coming from, but they are absolutely happy children. Compared to many of the children who come from these big corporate schools who say that I'm unhappy because I've got 99 on 100 and I did not get that one extra mark. So yes, money is important. But is it the only important thing? I think we should ask this question to those people who lost their jobs during the lockdown. They'll tell you, yes, money is very, very important. I don't know where my next meal is coming from. Or you ask those people who continue to have stable jobs, but now had a lot of time with their family. So with that minimum salary, they're getting more time to spend with their family. And they found that this actually is a very happy situation. So it's a very individual thing. Yes, money matters, but it doesn't only matter.
Right. So there's a question from the audience to Dr. Chawda, which I will just raise. That someone has asked that if I imagine myself being in different happy situations, though I'm currently not happy, but I imagine myself being in different happy situations and I feel happy. Is it normal or is it a psychological problem? They want to know.
Oh God. Now you're putting me in a cleft stick. But one of the things that is occasionally used when we are doing therapy is, especially when you're very down, to visualize yourself in a place which is a little more relaxing or a little more positive. And hopefully some of the guided visualization that you will do will actually benefit you and you'll start feeling a little more positive. But we have to be a little sensible about this. It's a very open-ended question. So certainly if you are, shall we say, stupidly optimistic or stupidly positive or stupidly whatever, then maybe you need to actually seek an opinion as to whether your reactions would be considered normal or not normal. Given such as it were, sometimes when I'm down, I visualize myself in a very happy place, and I think that makes me feel a little better.
Right. Right.
Dr. Avinash, can I interrupt you in between?
Ma'am, you give us 5 minutes more. We are finishing our panel. Yes, yes.
Because our Honorable Vice Chancellor has joined, so I just need to welcome.
Yes, I know. We just, yes, yeah. Just give us 5 minutes. We are finishing the panel. Then Sir can take over. Yeah. So that's yeah. Well, Dr. Sri Lakshmi, ma'am, the question here someone has asked in the audience, very relevant question. Is a knowledge and acknowledgement of suffering important for us to experience happiness later?
Sure. Can you be perpetually happy? Then possibly, like Dr. Kairsey said, you need to check whether you're okay. So one cannot be perpetually happy, and then that happiness will lose its value if all the time you are happy, right? So there has to be suffering to understand the value of your own happiness. So yes, there has to be an acknowledging and addressing it. Just not acknowledging. You don't suffer in silence. You look at measures to cope, like Dr. Amrit has said. You look to ways to mitigate your suffering so that you can re-find your happiness again. So happiness and suffering are two sides of the coin. One has to go with the other. Only when you experience one do you know the value of the other as well.
Right. Well, Amrit, my last question for the panel, which is coming to you, before which we'll end up, and I think Vice Chancellor Sir can take over. Do you think India needs a happiness ministry, which, wherein we'll have a minister for happiness and someone who can, inculcate happiness across the nation?
Avinash, I tell to a lot of patients of mine, if the government should have given us only one fundamental right, that should have been right to be happy. I always tell my patients, once they give you the right to be happy, it encompasses a lot of things which we actually don't have. So whatever freedom we have been given, everything has been kept. So there has been it's like a throat, this choke chain. So you can't talk more. Freedom, right to give speech. If you tell something more, you are trolled. You are, you anything, and you might be urbanized also. So a right to happy is very, very important. Be it in schools, be it at home, be it in the workplace. So if every ministry, every school, every organization has one small department, a little bit of investment in making people around them happy, I think it will take away a lot of stress out of our life. The constant drive to be happy. You look at posts of majority of the young people. Everywhere there is this, they're striving to be happy. I don't understand what they're looking at. They have everything. They have home. They have no responsibility. They have good careers. They are well set in life before they've even struggled. But somewhere nobody knows what is happiness, how to achieve it, and when they have it, to acknowledge it. So somewhere people have learned to be happy being sad, and they become very sad when they become happy. I see a lot of Indians, maybe in our state, I see a lot of people, they're happy being sad. The moment you try to make them happy, they become sad.
Right.
So somewhere that whole perspective has to change.
Yes. Well, just before I end, I have to ask Dr. Chawda this because it's an audience question. Being a bachelor or being married, what gives more happiness? Someone has asked.
I'll get beaten up by my wife.
Ask the lady on the panel also.
I think if we are in a situation where we are in a supportive relationship, then there's nothing as lovely as being married. And I think if you're in a relationship where the person is not supportive, is not nice, causes a tremendous amount of stress, then maybe we need to rethink the relationship. So it works both ways. And I'm sure Dr. Sri Lakshmi will also agree.
I agree, sir. Absolutely agree with you.
Right. Well, we've had an amazing panel and all of you have been amazing with amazing questions. To end, I will only say one thing someone has quoted. Only the wearer of the shoe, the person who wears the shoe, will know where the shoe pinches. So, we each one's happiness is individual, and you have to find your happiness. Professor Van Hooven from Netherlands, who's a psychologist who's done maximum research on happiness, was asked to sum up in one line what he learned in his 25 years of work. He said, happiness cannot be bought or cannot be sought. It has to be created. So I thank all of you for being here on this panel. It's been wonderful. God bless to everyone who's attended, and I hand over to Neeti ma'am now. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Avinash, and all the panelists. It has been a wonderful session, and we could have gone hearing because of the paucity of time. We are not able to continue with the session more, but it has been really interesting. And you all being practicing psychiatrists, the practical aspects of happiness has come into picture. Now I would like to request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Nageshwar Rao, to give a presidential address. And he has been facilitating, motivating, encouraging, and he's been a great mentor for all of us. And because of him only, we have been able to materialize this symposium. Sir, if you are around, please take over.
Good noon to all of you. First of all, I compliment all of you for having this wonderful session on happiness. I was supposed to join in the morning itself, but I could not do that because the national education policy for which the conclave is going on, and Honorable Prime Minister, he has also addressed that conclave. The session is still going on. Therefore, I could not join at that point of time. But for the last 20-25 minutes, I was here and I was listening to the observations, specifically Dr. Sri Lakshmi ji and Amrit Pattu Joshi, and some queries they were responding also. Government is specifically looking into the issue of mental health, specifically during this COVID-19 scenario. And the issue which you have brought to all of us is, it is not specific to COVID-19. It is our mental health, and that is very, very important in every moment of our life. People want happiness, but sometimes they invite unhappiness. The mental state forces them to go to such a situation. The anger, the disgust, the physical hunger, in any of these causes, they force us to be angry and then invite unhappiness. And I was listening very carefully to Amritji and as well as Sri Lakshmi ji also. They were suggesting that how to cope up this particular phenomenon. Sometimes the people, they devote a lot of their time in doing their duties. And if a person is duty conscious, he may get more happiness vis-a-vis a person who is right conscious. If you are feeling that your rights, they have not been served, or you could not exercise your rights, then you may feel disgusted and you may lose happiness. But without expecting, someone has referred to the expectation also, because expectation is one of the factors which may decide whether you're happy or you're not happy. People, if their expectations are not being met, they feel mentally disturbed and thereby they become unhappy. And lots of people, they are now suffering from this disease. We can say it's a disease. Maintaining a stable mental health is not an easy task. The scenario which earlier we were having, at that point of time, the complexities in the relationships, it was not there. But now in the change scenario, we find in the workplace, even at home also, even in the social activities also, everywhere we feel that complexities, they have come up in a big way. Artificial behavior, sometimes it also hurts the people, and thereby they feel that they're not happy. This particular initiative, which my young colleagues, they have taken from the School of Management Studies, it will be a great help to the family of IGNOU, as well as to others also who are associated with the in the field of education. Because IGNOU family, it consists of 500 faculty members, 2,000 support staff, plus 30 lakh learners. Because whatsoever we are getting from you all, that will also go to our learners. Because our learners, they're also facing this critical factor in their life, happiness. Absence of happiness, no one wants. Unhappiness, no one wants. But how to become happy? We don't have any ready-made prescription to suggest that this can be done. But still we see that if you see a smiling face like Amritji, the people, they feel happy, and others may also feel, looking at him, feel happy. So the face sometimes reflects the happiness. The way you speak, that also brings the happiness. Someone has talked about the emotional intelligence. The people who are emotional, they have got both the sides with them. They express happiness and sometimes they feel dissatisfaction also. And that is why the word intelligence is also being added. So we have to apply our mind. We have to see that how that intelligence, it can be used to justify your unhappiness instances. There are instruments available in the management and in the psychology also, which can test that how much a person is happy and what is the quotient of the happiness in an individual. And that can easily be measured. And maybe this psychotrics and the people who counsel them, they usually look into it and then they suggest the prescriptive measures to enhance the happiness of the concerned. Nowadays, counseling has become very, very important. And that is why there also what we primarily decide that our people, they must be bring back towards happiness. Since they are not feeling happy right at this point of time, maybe because of unemployment, someone has referred about it also in their queries, that because of unemployment, because of not getting good jobs, the people may not be happy. But you can't find the people, they don't have the jobs. They're not even getting their regular daily meals also. But still they find that they feel happiness. So happiness is an internal state, internal mental state. Of course, external factors, they influence that happiness, but our internal mental strength, that is the prime pillar of boosting our happiness. I must compliment Nitiji as well as Nayantara ji, as well as my distinguished speakers who have spared their valuable time to share their valuable insights with all of us. And I will request Nitiji also that prepare a brief note, maybe in the other languages also, local languages also, so that we can reach to the learners in a much effective way. And we can also see that how we can take the support of this particular group who has come forward to help us in this endeavor, because we have got a bigger number in terms of the population which is with us, 30 lakh learners. So how we can cope up, how we can reach to them, how we can enhance this happiness quotient, maybe even by 1% also, that will be a great contribution. So please carry on your initiative. And I must compliment you all and also the school which is coming up with such sort of initiatives. I'm thankful for giving me an opportunity to be with you this noon. My sincere best wishes to all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insightful views on happiness, and we surely would prepare the note. And I would just like to mention here that this is an extension of the podcast series which we have already launched and which is already available to the learners. So we'll be placing the recordings of these discussions and the views of the eminent experts on the podcast as well, so it can reach to as many viewers and as many learners and stakeholders as possible. And we are also live on YouTube also, so we already have initiated the process of reaching to the masses. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your valuable time. And now I would request my colleague, Professor Nayantara Padhi, who has been instrumental in motivating me as well to take up this initiative, to give the concluding remarks and propose vote of thanks. Professor Nayantara.
Namaste. Respected Vice Chancellor Sir, Pro-Vice Chancellor Professor R.P. Das Sir, Chief Guest of today's symposium Dr. Dalal, Guest of Honor Dr. Shah, Chief Speaker Dr. Rao, invited speakers Dr. Kersi, Dr. Amrit and Dr. Sri Lakshmi, and moderator of the symposium Dr. Avinash. All our valued guests, participants, and my dear colleagues. It gives me immense pleasure to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of SOMS, IGNOU, and on behalf of my colleague, Professor Neeti Agarwal, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all the guests, all the dignitaries, speakers, and the moderator of the symposium. Your gracious presence and your ideas and thoughts on the topic of happiness at work is really wonderful. A special thanks is due to Dr. Amrit Padjoshi. So I would like to express our profound gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, for his constant motivation, guidance, and support. I would like to thank our Director, School of Management, Professor Ravi Shankar, for his encouragement. A special thanks is due to Dr. Nisha, Dr. Maithili, and Mr. Vineet from Uttarakhand Open University for providing the technical assistance for coordinating this event. Finally, I would like to thank all the participants and attendees who have turned up in such great numbers. We never expected that around 2,000 people will register, and almost 3/4 of them are attending the Zoom meeting since last 2.5 hours. We are really honored to have you all here. Thank you very much. Now, I think Professor Neeti can conclude and close the symposium.
Thank you, Professor Nayantara. It's indeed wonderful to have you all on this session. And thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, and special thanks to our Pro-Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor R.P. Das, who has been with us throughout the session. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nayantara. Thank you, Nisha. And thank you, Vineet ji. Thank you, all the panelists, and Dr. Amrit, special thanks to you. Thank you all.